Hello, you beautiful creatures, human and otherwise. It is me, the Bee, from Super Marcy's Super Network, and I come to you yet again with another review. Now, it has been a while, and I have been out of camera practice for quite some time, but I'm just going to give this a go, and if you can endure the next X amount of minutes of me rambling, good for you. The money's at the door. Alright, so I've made it no secret that I love myself some Hellblazer John Constantine, or Constantine if you wish to be specific, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I told you I'm very rusty on this. Okay, Dangerous Habits. This has to be one of my favourite Hellblazer arcs ever. A lot of Constantine's stories are very character and story based, and Dangerous Habits is of no exception. It was written by Garth Ennis, and if you know your comic books, you will know that Garth Ennis is one of the gods of writing. He manages to slip inside each and every one of the characters that he writes, and he seems to understand them so well. Ennis gravitates towards very flawed and troubled characters, and Constantine is no exception. Now, the reason why this particular story has a special place in my heart, as well as many Hellblazer fans, is because of this. I'm going to read the back blurb of this because I am absolutely shit at giving synopsises, and then we'll get into the story proper. Okay, here we go. After surviving confrontations with demons, elementals, cultists and serial killers, John Constantine now faces the one enemy he can't outrun or outwit: his own malfunctioning flesh. Decades of chain smoking have taken their inevitable toll, and Constantine's tortured lungs have blossomed into malignancy. The diagnosis is clear and inescapable: terminal, inoperable cancer. The world's greatest magician has, at most, 2 months left before his body gives up the ghost, and he knows exactly what will happen after that. The ruler of hell has some very special plans for the soul of John Constantine, and eternity itself may not be enough time to undertake all of the tortures he is readying. Where to begin? Here is what I love most about Dangerous Habits if I had to break it down into a nutshell. This is a story about John Constantine at his most vulnerable. In this story, he endures every single emotional damage you can imagine. He looks into his past and he sees all the sins he has committed. He is in the present and he is seeing how much wrong he's done. And in the future, it is incredibly ambiguous because throughout most of the story, there may not be a future for him. Now, Constantine is a consummate survivor, but a lot of what he does has consequences. And that is something that has always followed him throughout each and every one of his stories. Dangerous Habits is no exception. What I love most about it is that you truly see John Constantine as a fragile and rather not necessarily weak, but very human character. He is very human. When he is told by the doctor those words, "I'm sorry, Mr. Constantine, it's terminal," like, it's just, his whole world collapses around him. Up until that point, he hadn't even thought that cancer would do him in. Okay, he has been dealing with demonic activity. He's dealt with Satan. Like, he's faced down each and every single supernatural entity you could possibly conjure. But what ends up tripping him? His own body. No supernatural influence, no curse, no hex, nothing. No spell gone wrong. This is something that he has done to himself. And to have a character face their own mortality in such a way, this is not the first time it's happened, of course, but the way Garth Ennis is able to get into the mind and the soul of John Constantine, he knows what it's like to live on borrowed time. And I think we all know that. At some point or another, we have all contemplated how we're going to go out, and when. Life these days is so incredibly nebulous. We don't know what's around the other corner. And when we see a story like that, specifically with the character of Constantine, who's not necessarily a good person, but he's hardly what one would call completely morally reprehensible, we can sympathise with that. And just to see it being laid bare in the story the way it is, it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Now, the art, the penciling, I should say, excuse me while I flip through this. I am very, very disorganized here, guys. Okay, so, yes. Yeah, there's quite a few artists in this comic book, but I'll let you look at the lines here. There is something particularly drab about this book, and it's intentional. It's very much kind of monochromatic, like in greys and blacks and whites. There's nothing particularly distinctive about most of it, only in certain panels where colour is used to convey an emotion or a feeling or a situation that Constantine finds himself in. For the most part, it's like the comic book is echoing Constantine's health. It's fading quickly, and the world doesn't look bright and beautiful and glamorous. It looks very dour, and as time goes on, as Constantine starts to cough up more and more blood into his toilet, it's just, it really is a stark visual about what life must be like through Constantine's eyes. Another reason why I love this book so much, quite simply, is that it also cements another turning moment in Constantine's lineage, in his career, so to speak. I'm not going to go into the absolute particulars, but you know the line in The Usual Suspects, said by Kevin Spacey, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince man that he didn't exist," or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. Now, think of the inverse of that, okay? Think of the inverse of what that means and apply it to John Constantine in this sort of situation. The fact of the matter is, Constantine is a consummate trickster. He is a huckster. He is a shyster. And he is not one to go down without a fight. In one particular chapter of the comic, it has Constantine sort of accepting what could happen to him. But he says, if I'm going to die, I'm going to do it on my terms. And Constantine's mind is always clicking over the possibilities of what might happen. He knows the risks of what he's doing, but damned if he's not going to at least give it a try. Constantine he's like a cockroach. He's a blonde, trench-coated, chain-smoking, sexy cockroach, right? And once again, I got to give praise to the way this story is written by Innes and how it's illustrated. Innes's writing and the pencil work and the inks in this book perfectly complement each other. I don't think it could be drawn or shaded any better. And it's just so good. It's just, yeah, the final, or rather, towards the end of the book, when Constantine is finally, putting his life on the line to do what must be done, to attempt to save himself, there is this fantastic way of showing how basically the devil works. Now, once again, I'm not going to go into the particulars of the universe, but there are three particular bad guys that Constantine has to contend with in this book. The Fallen, the first, the second, and the third. Okay, all of them basically embody Satan in a way. I'm not quite clear as to how that works, but anyway. Now, the way it's written and the way it's drawn, it is spectacular because it shows each and every one of these demonic entities as their own person. There's no doubt in your mind about who is what and what is who, if you get my meaning. Yeah, this is just one of the best things I've ever read. I know, I sound so blasé, and I sound completely poser when I say that, but this happens to be one of the finest hours in Vertigo, and also one of the finest hours in Hellblazer. If you are looking to get into Hellblazer, or rather, if you want to get back into Hellblazer, if you've been out for quite some time, give this another read. It is like I said, one of the finest hours of Hellblazer, one of the finest hours of Vertigo, and you could do a lot worse than this. Now, out of 5, I give this 5 out of 5. Once again, I don't think I've ever read as much as an emotional story that centers around one man's struggle against himself. This is not about God, this is not about heaven, this isn't about any of those things. This is not about religion. This is about self. And to me, that is the core concept as to why Dangerous Habits works so well. Oh, and pop trivia. The concept of John Constantine dying of lung cancer was used in the Francis Lawrence film Constantine with Keanu Reeves. Now, that was used for different reasons, but still, I did like that. So, yeah, 5 out of 5. Give it a read, enjoy it, love it, and thank me later. See you later, guys, and thank you once again for listening to me ramble. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.